So I'm having some trouble trying to remember what the name is of the movie I just saw. I believe it was called Wind. No. I know what it was. It's I think it was called Wind Pond. That's the name of the movie. Why would anyone name anything Wind Pond? I am dumb. Wait, no. Now I remember. Yeah. I think the movie is called Wind River.
Written and directed by Taylor Sheridan, Wind River is a movie starring Jeremy Renner, Elizabeth Olsen, Gil Birmingham, and yes, even Jon Bernthal, who I did not know was in the movie until, I saw the movie. Now, all of those names belong to very talented people, but Taylor Sheridan was the name that popped out the most to me.
Why?
Because Taylor Sheridan wrote Sicario and Hell or High Water, which are two excellent movies with incredible screenplays. And so going into this movie, I was like, it's probably going to be good because it's Taylor Sheridan. And the writing, I'm sure, at least the writing's going to be great. And so I went into it with not super high expectations, but I had expectations for a quality story and a quality script and quality characters. And I've got to say that I received all of those things. I would even go so far as to say that Wind River is maybe even better than Hell or High Water and Sicario. Now let's talk about the things I liked about Wind River. The story of Wind River is tense, twisted, brutal, and heartbreaking. Now there are really two main characters in this movie played by Jeremy Renner and Elizabeth Olsen. Now Renner plays basically a hunter who you would hire to you've got mountain lions that are eating your cattle or coyotes that just aren't leaving anything, they're killing your chickens or whatever. He's the guy you call to come and eradicate those things, hunt them down and shoot them and, kill them. And anyways, he's out on a expedition hunting a mountain lion that has killed some cattle, and he comes across the dead body of a girl that he happens to know who lives on an Indian reservation not far from there. And Elizabeth Olsen comes along, and she's from the FBI, and she's trying to solve this murder. And Jeremy Renner's also trying to solve it too because he knew this girl and he's emotionally attached. Oh, and I must also mention that the girl who died was wearing no shoes, no proper clothes for the kind of snowy weather of Wyoming, and was 6 miles away from the nearest building, which means that she ran deep into the snow with no shoes on. And that's part of the reason why Jeremy Renner is so involved in this case, because he's trying to figure out how she got so far out in the middle of nowhere with no shoes on or no proper clothing. So suffice to say, it's a very interesting premise, and if you don't find it very interesting, what the hell is wrong with you? And that is all I am going to say about the plot of this movie, because this movie needs to be experienced by your eyes. And another thing I will say about the story of this movie is you really get the sense of just how awful it is to be a Native American living on an Indian reservation. In my life, as far as experiences with Indian reservations, I've not ever been to an Indian reservation, but I've met people who lived in Indian reservations, and I've seen people speak about them. I once saw, I met a guy actually on a Greyhound bus coming back from Flagstaff, Arizona, who was a Navajo Indian, and he told me a few stories about how there's no running water, no electricity, there's interfamily violence, drugs, alcoholism everywhere, rampant at least his reservation. And that's kind of the norm for a lot of reservations. And I also saw a guy speak who was very involved with Indian reservations, and there were even more heartbreaking stories that guy told. This movie does a really great job of illustrating just how hard it is to live on these kinds of reservations and how the government seems to not really give a damn about a lot of things that go on the reservations. Like, there are two lines of text at the end of this movie that, really break you down, and you're like, wow, this is horrible. If you think about it, there is no other minority that has had it worse off than the Indians of America. Firstly, we bring a bunch of diseases over and it kills off 90% of their population. Then the colonists want to buy land and whatnot and move out west, and then the Indians are like, we don't want to do this, and so there's some fighting and all this stuff, and there's more diseases and more impoverishment. And then we decide to force them to move way out west and have them live on Indian reservations, and it's all very, very sad. Like, I can't remember the last time I saw a nice, big, happy Indian family that's 100% full-blooded Cherokee or Choctaw or whatever, just sitting at a restaurant having a ball. And when most people think of, like, minorities that have been oppressed and whatnot, we think of slavery with African Americans, and absolutely, that's horrible. But it just seems like in our society, we always forget that we also enslaved the Native Americans in a lot of ways, and we also kind of killed them off and, forced them to move out west and forced them to live on reservations that, are just not suitable to living. But anyways, Indian reservations seem to suck everywhere, and this movie did a good job of illustrating that environment. Now let's talk performances. Jeremy Renner gives the best performance I've ever seen him give. He is subtle, he is quiet, and he disappears into his character. There's not one moment in this movie where I was like, oh look, Hawkeye is, he's going into hunting. About time. No, in this movie, you only see this really hardened hunter who's a good man who's been through a lot of crap and who's dealing with a lot of crap in this movie. Also, Elizabeth Olsen, really great in this movie. She kind of plays a fish out of water kind of character because she's not used to Wyoming or anything or the culture or anything, but she adapts and she's resourceful and she is a good female protagonist. And I will also say that Gil Birmingham is unbelievable in this movie. Now, he was in Hell or High Water and he was great in that. I think he's even better in this. He plays the father of the girl who was murdered, and man, his performance is just, you feel every bit of pain, and there's just so much emotion in his eyes that you just want to cry with him. I'd also say that Jon Bernthal was excellent in this movie. I'm not going to give away who he plays because that would be quite a bit of a spoiler, but suffice to say, he is freaking awesome, just like Jon Bernthal is always awesome in everything that he's in. He's got that feral masculinity thing going for him, kind of like Tom Hardy, where if he's gonna beat you up, it's gonna look like you're being mauled by a bear. Also, if you're really into cinematography and seeing how a film is made and made well, watch this movie. Really and truly, the cinematography in this movie is just amazing. The landscapes of Wyoming themselves are amazing, but the way this movie is shot, it just pulls you in. You are part of the action. And now, I don't know if Taylor Sheridan has ever directed a movie before, but if this is his first time directing, he did an astounding job. The way he directs the action scenes in this movie, they're not gratuitous. There's no gratuitous violence in this. It's violence that's rated R because it needed to be. It really shocks you whenever it goes down. And I mean, I thought the way he directed these action scenes were very cool, and he really, you just like, when the gunshots go off and they hit people, you're like, oh, God, it hit me! It hit me! As for negatives with this movie, guys, I don't have any. Really and truly, guys, this movie blew me away. It's definitely in the top 3 favorite movies of the year for me. It just, the social and political commentary was right there, right on the mark, and the story itself was just heartbreaking, brutal, really drew me in. It was tense. I was on the edge of my seat in a lot of sequences. The acting was excellent across the board. So tell me, have you seen Wind River? If so, comment below and tell me what you thought of it. And as always, if you like this video, please like it and subscribe. Tell your friends about the channel. And if you're a white American with a nice big family and a nice house and who's able to, have leisure time and relax and have fun, and survival is not, hard for you, be thankful for what you have, because Americans like me and like you, if you fall into that category, should be thankful for what we have, because not everyone has what we have.